have been smart your entire life, and it has not protected you. Not once. Not in the relationship where you saw the dynamic clearly and still could not change it. Not in the professional environment where you understood the problem better than anyone in the room and still watched someone less capable walk away with the outcome you deserved. Not in the moments where your analysis was perfect, your reasoning was flawless, your understanding of the situation was so far ahead of the people around you that the gap should have been an advantage, and instead, it was a frustration, because the gap did not produce the outcome. The gap produced the specific, grinding, daily experience of being right without being effective, of seeing clearly without being able to convert the seeing into the result, of carrying intelligence that the world should have rewarded and watching the world reward something else instead. Machiavelli would look at you right now and say something that would sting. He would say, "Your intelligence is not the problem. Your intelligence is the raw material, and raw material, unprocessed, is worth less than processed material of lower quality." The person who beat you was not smarter. They were more processed. Their intelligence, however inferior to yours in raw quality, had been converted into something deployable. Yours had not. And the gap between raw intelligence and deployed intelligence is the gap that this video closes. Here is what has been happening while you were being impressively smart. The person who beat you to the promotion was not analyzing the situation more deeply than you were. They were deploying their analysis more precisely. They were thinking from the decision-maker's position rather than from their own. They were saying less and holding more. They were reading the behavior while you were listening to the words. They were operating 3 moves deep while you were optimizing for move 1. Every single one of these differences is a deployment difference, not an intelligence difference. And every single one of them is correctable through the 10 strategies in this video. Machiavelli wrote, "There is nothing more difficult to plan, more uncertain of success, nor more dangerous to manage than the creation of a new order of things." That is what you are about to do. You are about to create a new order inside your own mind. An order that takes the intelligence you already have and converts it from the thing that shows you the problem into the thing that produces the outcome. 10 strategies. Each one a specific, immediately practicable cognitive upgrade that makes your intelligence dangerous rather than merely impressive. By the end of this video, you will think differently, not about more things, about the same things, but from angles that the conventionally smart person cannot see. And the angles that the conventionally smart person cannot see are the angles where all the real advantage lives. Machiavelli observed, "Men in general judge more by the eye than by the hand." The conventionally smart person tries to be seen as intelligent. The dangerously smart person tries to produce results that the room cannot explain. Same intelligence, different deployment, completely different level of power. Before I start, the last strategy in this video is the one that makes every other strategy permanent. Miss it, and the rest fades within a week. Stay to the very end. If you are ready to stop being impressively smart and start being dangerously smart, comment the words "I upgrade now." Like this video, because every like puts it in front of someone who is still confusing knowledge with power. Subscribe and hit the notification bell. And drop your location and the time right now. This community is real, and right now it matters who is here. Strategy 1. Think in second and third order consequences. The dangerously smart person does not see the first domino. They see where the 10th one falls. Most people think in first order consequences. What happens immediately if I do this? What is the direct result of this action? What does the room see in the next 5 minutes after this move is made? Machiavelli would never stop at the first order. He would map the second, and the third, and the fourth, because the first order consequence is the one everyone can see, and what everyone can see is what everyone prepares for. The advantage lives in the consequences that nobody has mapped yet. The second and third order effects that the first order consequence produces, rippling outward through the system in ways that only the person who thought past the first domino can anticipate. Machiavelli observed, "Whoever desires constant success must change his conduct with the times." That requires seeing not just what is happening now, but what the current happening will produce next. The dangerously smart person walks into every significant decision having already mapped the probable chain of consequences 3 steps deep. Not perfectly. Approximately. Because approximate foresight 3 steps deep is worth more than perfect analysis 1 step deep. Here is your practice. Before your next significant decision, draw 3 levels. Level 1, what happens immediately? Level 2, what does the immediate result produce? Level 3, what does the second result produce? In most cases, the decision that looks best at level 1 looks different at level 3. And the decision that looks best at level 3 is the decision the dangerously smart person makes while the conventionally smart person is still optimizing for level 1. Let me give you a specific example. You are considering leaving a job. First order, you leave. You feel relief. The immediate pressure is removed. That is where most people stop thinking. Second order, the team you left restructures around your absence. The relationships you built inside that organization begin to atrophy. The institutional knowledge you carried, the specific understanding of how things work that only comes from being inside, starts decaying the day you leave. Third order, 6 months later, when you are looking for a reference, or when an opportunity arises that requires the network you built inside that organization, the connections have cooled. The people who would have advocated for you have moved on. The third-order consequence of the first-order relief is a specific, measurable, consequential loss of social capital that was invisible at level 1. Does that mean you should not leave? Not necessarily. It means the decision should be made at level 3 rather than level 1. And the decision that looks best at level 3 might be, leave, but spend the first month maintaining the key relationships before the atrophy begins. That is a level 3 decision. It accounts for what the level 1 decision ignores. And accounting for what is ignored is what makes the thinking dangerous rather than merely intelligent. Comment, I think 3 moves deep. Strategy 2. Study what people do, not what they say. Behavior is the only honest language humans speak. My friend Machiavelli wrote something about this that will rewire how you read every person in your life. He said, "One who deceives will always find those who allow themselves to be deceived." The deception he was describing is not deliberate lying. It is the natural gap between what people say and what people do. People say they value honesty. Watch whether they punish the person who tells them the truth. People say they support your success. Watch whether they celebrate your wins or diminish them. People say they are your ally. Watch whether they show up when the cost of showing up is real rather than theoretical. Most smart people listen to words. Dangerously smart people track behavior. Not because words are always lies, because words are always aspirational. People say what they wish were true about themselves. What they do is what is actually true. And the gap between the two, the specific, measurable, observable gap between the stated value and the demonstrated behavior, is the most valuable piece of information available in any human dynamic. Here is your practice. Pick one person in your life whose words you have been trusting. For 2 weeks, track their behavior rather than listening to their words, not with suspicion, with curiosity. Note whether the behavior matches the words. In some cases, it will. Those are your genuine allies. In other cases, the behavior will diverge from the words in ways you had not noticed because the words were so convincing that the behavior was invisible. Those divergences are the data that the dangerously smart person uses to make better decisions about who to trust, who to invest in, and who to protect themselves from. Machiavelli would tell you, the man who reads words is the man who is managed by words. The man who reads behavior is the man who sees through the management and operates from the truth that the words were designed to conceal. Let me give you a specific scenario. You have a manager who says they support your growth. Those are the words. Now track the behavior. Have they created a single opportunity for your advancement in the past 6 months? Have they introduced you to a single person whose connection would serve your development? Have they advocated for you in a single meeting where the advocacy would have cost them something, political capital, personal standing, the specific expenditure of reputation that genuine advocacy requires? If the answer to all three is no, then the words "I support your growth" are aspirational. They describe how the manager wishes to see themselves. They do not describe what the manager is actually doing. And the gap, the specific, measurable, observable gap between the stated support and the demonstrated indifference, is the data point that the dangerously smart person uses to make the next decision about how much of their own loyalty and effort to invest in this particular dynamic. Machiavelli would tell you, the man who reads words lives in the world the speaker constructed for him. The man who reads behavior lives in the world as it actually is. And the world as it actually is, however uncomfortable, is the only world where good decisions can be made. Comment: I watch hands, not mouths. Strategy 3. Develop the habit of strategic doubt. Question everything, including your own conclusions, especially when the conclusion feels certain. Machiavelli observed, "The wise man does everything in his power to avoid being at the mercy of fortune. And the primary way fortune captures the intelligent person is through the specific mechanism of certainty. You arrive at a conclusion. The conclusion feels right. The evidence supports it. The reasoning is sound. And the certainty that follows, the settled, comfortable, entirely justified sense that you have figured this out, is the specific moment where your intelligence stops protecting you and starts blinding you. Because certainty closes the analysis. It stops the inquiry. It converts the provisional conclusion into a fixed position. And a fixed position, however correct it was when it was formed, becomes increasingly inaccurate as conditions change around it, while the position stays locked. Most smart people arrive at conclusions and defend them. Dangerously smart people arrive at conclusions and interrogate them, not to undermine their own confidence, to ensure their confidence is earned rather than assumed. The interrogation is simple. What would have to be true for this conclusion to be wrong? If you can answer that question clearly, you have a conclusion that has been tested. If you cannot, if the question itself feels threatening to the conclusion, you have a belief dressed up as an analysis. And beliefs in any contested environment are the things that get exploited first. Here is a Machiavelli proverb that makes this permanent. He wrote, "A prince who is not wise himself will never take good advice." Apply this to your own reasoning. The mind that does not question itself will never improve itself. Strategic doubt is not weakness. It is the maintenance system that keeps the intelligence calibrated. Without it, the intelligence drifts. It starts trusting its own patterns rather than checking them against reality. And trusted patterns, unchecked by doubt, are the patterns that the dangerously smart person exploits in everyone else. Let me give you a specific practice that makes strategic doubt a daily habit rather than an occasional exercise. At the end of each day, identify the one thing you were most certain about during that day, the assessment that felt most solid, the conclusion that required the least effort to reach, the position that arrived with the warm, comfortable sense of rightness that strong conclusions always carry. Then spend 2 minutes constructing the strongest argument against that conclusion. Not a weak argument. The genuine best case for the opposing view. If the opposing view is easy to construct, your conclusion needs more support before it should be trusted. If the opposing view is genuinely difficult to construct, if you struggle to find the strongest case against your own position, the conclusion is probably sound. Either outcome serves you. The first prevents you from acting on a conclusion that has not been tested. The second confirms a conclusion that has. Both make you dangerously smarter than the person who arrived at the conclusion and never questioned it. Comment: I doubt my certainty most when it feels strongest. Strategy 4. Learn to think from the other person's position before you make your move. Every miscalculation in your life came from failing to see from the other side. My friend, this strategy is the one that separates the intelligent person from the strategically intelligent person. The intelligent person analyzes the situation from their own perspective. They see the problem, they construct the solution, they evaluate the options, all from where they are standing. The dangerously smart person does all of that and then does something the conventionally smart person almost never does. They walk around to the other side and look at the same situation from the other person's position. Not to sympathize, to strategize, because the other person's position is where the other person's decisions are being made. And the other person's decisions are the variable that determines whether your move succeeds or fails. Machiavelli wrote, "If an injury has to be done to a man, it should be so severe that his vengeance need not be feared." Now hear the layer beneath that statement. The only way to calibrate the severity of any action is to see the situation from the receiving end, to map the other person's probable response, to anticipate how they will interpret your move, how they will feel about it, and what they will do in reaction to it. Without that mapping, every move you make is aimed blind. With it, every move is aimed with the specific precision that comes from having seen the target from both sides. Here is your practice. Before your next significant interaction with someone whose response matters, spend 3 minutes thinking from their position. What do they want? What do they fear? What would make them cooperate, and what would make them resist? What is their best alternative if they refuse what you are offering? Those 4 questions, answered from their position rather than yours, give you the map that the conventionally smart person does not have. And the map changes everything about how you frame your approach, time your delivery, and calibrate your ask. Here is a Machiavelli proverb that makes this strategy permanent. He wrote, "A wise ruler ought never to keep faith, when by doing so it would be against his interests." Now hear the strategic layer beneath that statement. The only way to know when keeping faith would be against your interests is to understand what the other party's interests are and how they will act on them. If you do not understand the other side's position, their incentives, their pressures, their alternatives, you cannot predict what they will do. And if you cannot predict what they will do, every commitment you make is a commitment made blind. The 4 questions in this strategy: what do they want? What do they fear? What would make them cooperate? What is their best alternative? Are the 4 lenses that convert blind commitment into strategic positioning. Let me give you one more example. You are about to negotiate a raise. From your side, the analysis is clear. You deserve more based on your performance. From their side, which you must map before you enter the room, the analysis is different. They are managing a budget. They are evaluating whether the cost of the raise is less than the cost of replacing you. They are calculating whether granting your raise creates a precedent that other team members will reference. Those calculations, understood from their position, change how you frame the ask. Instead of "here is why I deserve more," the framing becomes "here is why granting this serves the team's budget better than the alternative of my departure." Same ask, different frame, completely different probability of success. And the frame was produced by the 3 minutes you spent seeing from their side. Comment "I see from their side" before I move from mine. Strategy 5. Master the art of useful ignorance. Sometimes not knowing, or appearing not to know, is the smartest position available. Machiavelli wrote, "It is not titles that honor men, but men that honor titles." Apply this to knowledge. It is not what you know that makes you powerful, but how you deploy what you know. And one of the most powerful deployments of knowledge is the deliberate appearance of not having it. Here is why useful ignorance is a weapon. When you display your knowledge openly, you give the room the complete picture of what you see. The room can then prepare for what you see, defend against what you see, and position around what you see. When you conceal your knowledge behind the appearance of ignorance, the room operates under the assumption that you do not see what they see. And the assumption of your ignorance gives you something that displayed knowledge never could: the advantage of being underestimated while being fully informed. Most smart people cannot resist showing what they know. The display feels good. It feels like the earned reward of the analysis. Machiavelli would never display unless the display served a specific strategic purpose. He would hold. He would ask questions whose answers he already knew, not to learn, but to observe how the other person answers. Because the answer to a question you already know the answer to is not information. It is calibration data. It tells you whether this person is truthful, whether they are informed, and whether their version of reality matches the version you have already assembled from your own sources. That calibration, impossible to obtain through displayed knowledge, is available only to the person who is willing to appear less informed than they are. Let me give you a specific scenario. You are in a meeting where a colleague presents a plan. You have already identified the 3 fatal flaws in the plan through your own analysis. The conventionally smart person announces the flaws. The display feels satisfying. The intelligence is visible. And the colleague, whose plan was just publicly dismantled, has become an adversary rather than a collaborator. The dangerously smart person holds the analysis. They ask a question instead, a question whose answer they already know. Something like, have we considered how this approach handles the third quarter transition? The question is not seeking information. It is testing whether the colleague has seen the flaw. If the colleague acknowledges the issue, the flaw gets addressed without the public dismantling. If the colleague does not see it, you now know something about the quality of their analysis that they do not know you know. That knowledge, held rather than displayed, gives you the specific advantage of being more informed than the room realizes. And more informed than the room realizes is the position from which the dangerously smart person operates most effectively. Machiavelli would tell you, the man who shows his cards wins the hand he is holding. The man who conceals his cards wins every hand that follows. Show less, hold more, and let the holding produce the advantage that the showing would have consumed. Comment, I know more than I show. Before I move to strategy 6, I want to be direct. The first 5 strategies upgraded how you process, how you think about consequences, read behavior, question certainty, see from other positions, and manage the display of what you know. The next 5 strategies upgrade what you process with. They build the cognitive infrastructure, the depth, the flexibility, the systems thinking, the gap detection, and the invisibility that makes the processing produce outcomes rather than analysis. Subscribe right now. Hit the notification bell. Stay. Strategy 6. Build your intelligence through reading, not through scrolling. Deep knowledge outperforms surface knowledge in every significant exchange. My friend Machiavelli wrote the most important book about human behavior by reading the ancients. He described his evenings in exile. I enter the ancient courts of ancient men, where, received by them with affection, I feed on that food which only is mine and which I was born for. That description is a description of deep reading, of sustained engagement with complex ideas, of the specific cognitive practice that builds the kind of intelligence that scrolling, the rapid, shallow, endlessly refreshed consumption of fragments, can never produce. Here is the difference that matters for your life. Scrolling produces familiarity. You have heard of things. You can reference things. You have the surface vocabulary of topics that you have encountered briefly and will encounter briefly again. Reading produces understanding. You have thought through things. You can reason about things. You have the structural comprehension that allows you to see connections, anticipate consequences, and generate insights that the familiar person cannot access, because familiarity and understanding are not the same cognitive product. The dangerously smart person reads, not as a hobby, as a discipline. 30 minutes per day of sustained engagement with one text that challenges their thinking. Not the text that confirms what they already believe. The text that requires them to hold an unfamiliar idea long enough to evaluate it genuinely rather than dismissing it reflexively. That practice, 30 minutes, one text, genuine engagement, builds the cognitive depth that separates the person who knows about things from the person who understands them. And understanding, in any environment where decisions are being made, outperforms familiarity the way architecture outperforms decoration. Here is something practical about implementing this strategy. Choose one book. Not a book that confirms what you already think. A book that challenges it. A book whose author's worldview is different enough from yours that engaging with it requires genuine cognitive effort, rather than the comfortable consumption of ideas you already agree with. Read 30 pages per day. Not skimming. Reading. With the sustained attention that allows the argument to build in your mind across days and weeks, rather than collapsing into a summary you forget by the next morning. Machiavelli would tell you that the man who reads widely thinks widely, and the man who thinks widely sees options that the narrow thinker cannot see. And options, in any contested environment, are the raw material of strategic advantage. The person with more options has more moves. And the person with more moves is the person who can respond to whatever fortune delivers with a precision that the person with fewer moves cannot match. Reading builds the options. Scrolling builds the familiarity with options that someone else already identified. The difference between those two, between building your own and borrowing someone else's, is the difference between the dangerously smart person and the person who sounds smart at dinner parties, but cannot deploy the intelligence when the stakes are real. Comment I read to understand, not to reference. Strategy 7. Develop the ability to hold contradictory ideas simultaneously. The dangerously smart person does not need resolution to function. Machiavelli wrote, "A prince must learn to be not always good, and to use or not use this ability as necessity requires." That sentence contains a contradiction. Be good. Also, be not good. Hold both, and deploy whichever the situation requires. The conventionally smart person reads that and resolves the contradiction immediately, choosing one side, dismissing the other, arriving at a clean position that eliminates the discomfort of the unresolved tension. The dangerously smart person reads it and holds both sides without resolution, because the holding is the power. The unresolved tension is the source of the flexibility that the resolved position eliminates. Here is why this matters. The person who has resolved every contradiction in their thinking has optimized for one set of conditions. They have decided what is right and what is wrong, what works and what does not, and they operate from those decisions with the efficiency that certainty provides. But conditions change, and the person whose thinking was optimized for one set of conditions finds, when the conditions shift, that the optimization has become a liability. The dangerously smart person, who held the contradiction without resolving it, still has both options available. They can deploy either side of the tension depending on what the current conditions require. They are not locked into the position that certainty produced. They are free to move between positions based on what the moment demands. Here is your practice. Identify one significant belief you hold about how the world works. Then construct the strongest possible argument against that belief. Not a straw man. The genuine, steel-manned, best-case scenario version of the opposing view. And hold both, your original belief and its strongest opposition, simultaneously, without resolving, without choosing, just holding. That holding builds the cognitive flexibility that the dangerously smart person requires and that the conventionally smart person sacrifices at the altar of certainty. Machiavelli himself is the greatest example of held contradiction in intellectual history. He wrote a book about ruthless political strategy and dedicated it to the very regime that had tortured him. He advocated for republican government in the discourses while teaching princely autocracy in The Prince. He held both the republican ideal and the autocratic reality simultaneously, without resolution, without choosing one and dismissing the other. And the holding, rather than weakening his thinking, produced the most complete and most applicable analysis of political behavior ever written. Because the held contradiction gave him access to both sides of the truth. And both sides of the truth, held simultaneously, produce a quality of insight that the resolved position, however clean and however comfortable, can never match. Comment: I hold the contradiction. Strategy 8. Think in systems rather than events. Every event is a symptom, and the dangerously smart person treats the system, not the symptom. My friend, this strategy addresses the specific cognitive habit that keeps smart people reacting to the same problems over and over without ever solving the thing that is producing them. The event is visible. The system that produced the event is invisible. The conventionally smart person addresses the event. The dangerously smart person addresses the system. And the system, once it is addressed, stops producing the events that the conventionally smart person was exhausting themselves responding to one at a time. Machiavelli observed, "Whoever wishes to foresee the future must consult the past, for human events ever resemble those of preceding times." That is a systems observation. It says, the events repeat because the system that produces them has not changed. Change the system and the events change. Leave the system intact and the events continue with the predictability that Machiavelli documented across 500 years of political history. Here is a specific example. You have a colleague who consistently produces conflict in your professional environment. The conventionally smart person addresses each conflict individually. They resolve the disagreement. They manage the tension. They navigate the interpersonal difficulty with the intelligence and the patience that each individual event requires. And next week, another conflict arrives. Because the system, the specific dynamic between you and this colleague, the structural conditions that produce the friction, has not been addressed. The dangerously smart person stops addressing the events and starts examining the system. What is producing the repeated conflict? Is it a misalignment of incentives? A structural competition for the same resources? A difference in operating style that the environment does not accommodate? Once the system is identified, the system can be modified, and the modification, applied once at the system level, eliminates the events that the event-level thinking was spending unlimited energy responding to. Machiavelli put this in terms that will make it permanent. He wrote, "Whoever wishes to foresee the future must consult the past, for human events ever resemble those of preceding times. The resemblance is not coincidence. It is the system expressing itself through events that look different on the surface, but are structurally identical underneath." The dangerously smart person sees the structure. The conventionally smart person sees the surface. And the person who sees the structure changes the thing that is producing the events, while the person who sees the surface keeps responding to events that will keep arriving because the structure that produces them is still intact. Here is one more thing about systems thinking that makes it immediately applicable. Every recurring frustration in your life is a symptom of a system you have not yet identified. The frustration repeats because the system repeats. Identify the system. Map the inputs that are producing the outputs you do not want. and modify one input. Not the output, the input. Because modifying the output is event-level thinking, and the event will recur. Modifying the input is systems-level thinking, and the system will change. One modification at the input level saves 100 interventions at the output level. That is the efficiency that systems thinking produces. Let me give you a specific practice for building systems thinking as a daily habit. Every time a problem recurs, every time the same frustration, the same conflict, the same outcome shows up for the second or third time, stop treating it as an event. Instead, ask 3 questions. First, what produced this? Not who, what. What structural condition, what misaligned incentive, what unaddressed dynamic is generating this recurring output? Second, how long has this system been producing this output? If the answer is months or years, the system is deeply embedded and the modification needs to be structural rather than cosmetic. Third, what is the single smallest input I could change that would produce the largest change in the output? That question, the minimum viable modification, is the systems thinker's most efficient tool, because systems respond to input changes with a specificity that event-level interventions cannot match. Change the right input, and the outputs change across the board. Change the wrong input and nothing changes. The dangerously smart person identifies the right input through the 3 questions. The conventionally smart person keeps addressing the outputs one at a time forever. And efficiency, at the cognitive level, is what makes intelligence dangerous rather than exhausting. Comment: I treat systems, not symptoms. Strategy 9. Learn to identify what is not being said. The missing information is always more valuable than the stated information. Machiavelli observed, "Men are so simple and yield so readily to the desires of the moment that he who will trick will always find another who will suffer himself to be tricked." The trick, in most cases, is not in what is said. It is in what is left out, the missing piece. The unstated assumption. The gap in the narrative that the narrator is hoping you will not notice, because noticing it would change your assessment of everything that was stated around it. Here is why this strategy makes you dangerously smart. Everyone in your environment is processing the stated information. They are analyzing what was said, evaluating the arguments that were made, and forming conclusions based on the evidence that was presented. The dangerously smart person is processing what was not said, what was conspicuously absent from the presentation. What question was not answered, even though the context demanded it? What topic was navigated around rather than through? What data point was missing from the analysis in a way that suggests the missing was deliberate rather than accidental? Here is your practice. In your next significant presentation or conversation where someone is making a case for something, listen for the negative space. Not for what is being argued, for what is being avoided. Ask yourself, what is the one question that this person should have addressed and did not? What is the piece of information that a complete case would have included and that this case conspicuously left out? That piece, the missing one, is almost always the piece that would have changed the conclusion if it had been included. And the person who left it out knows that, which is why it was left out. And you, by identifying the gap, now hold the one piece of information that the entire case was constructed to keep you from seeing. Here is a Machiavelli proverb that anchors this permanently. He wrote, "A prudent man must always follow the footsteps of great men and imitate those who have been outstanding." The great men Machiavelli studied were the men who could hear the silence inside the speech, who could identify the conspicuous absence in the apparently complete presentation, who could ask the one question that the entire case was constructed to prevent being asked. That skill, the skill of hearing what is not said, is the most advanced form of intelligence in this video. Because everything that is said can be prepared for. The skilled speaker has rehearsed the content. They have anticipated the questions. They have built the case to withstand the scrutiny that they expect, but they have not prepared for the question about what they left out. Because preparing for that question would require including the missing piece, and the missing piece is missing because including it would undermine the case. Your job is to find it. Comment: I listen for what is missing. Strategy 10. Make your intelligence invisible. The dangerously smart person never looks smart. They just produce results that smart people cannot explain. This is the last strategy. This is the one that makes every other strategy permanent. And it is the most counterintuitive strategy in this entire video, because it asks you to do the one thing that intelligent people find most difficult. Stop looking intelligent. Machiavelli wrote, "Everyone sees what you appear to be. Very few experience what you actually are." This is the final application of that principle. Appear less intelligent than you are, not as a performance, as a strategic position, because the person who appears intelligent is the person the room prepares against. The person who appears ordinary, who does not display the cognitive capability that would trigger the room's competitive defenses, is the person who operates in the space the room is not guarding. Here is what visible intelligence costs you. It makes you a target. It makes people prepare against your moves. It activates the competitive instinct in every person who feels threatened by capability that exceeds their own. It attracts the specific quality of scrutiny that is reserved for the person the room considers dangerous. And that scrutiny makes every move you make harder because the room is watching for it before it arrives. Invisible intelligence costs you nothing. It operates without the scrutiny. It produces results without the preparation against them. It builds without the interference that visible building always attracts. And the results, when they arrive from someone the room was not watching, land with the force of surprise that no amount of visible intelligence could generate. Here is the Machiavelli proverb that closes this entire video. He said, "The wise man does in the beginning what the fool does in the end." The fool displays intelligence at the beginning and struggles against the preparation it generates. The wise man conceals intelligence at the beginning and deploys it at the end, at the moment when the deployment produces the maximum effect with the minimum resistance. Same intelligence, different timing, completely different level of danger. Most smart people want the room to know how smart they are. Machiavelli would want the room to wonder how the results keep appearing from someone they never saw coming. That wondering, that persistent, low-grade, impossible-to-resolve uncertainty about how you keep producing outcomes that the room cannot trace back to visible intelligence is the most dangerous reputation available. Because the room cannot prepare against what it cannot see. And what it cannot see is what it fears most. Let me tell you what invisible intelligence looks like over 6 months. You stop displaying. You stop volunteering your analysis in contexts where the volunteering serves only your ego's need to be recognized as smart. You stop correcting people publicly. You stop making contributions whose primary purpose is to demonstrate that you see what others do not. And you start producing, quietly, without the commentary that usually accompanies the production. The results arrive. The room notices the results without being able to trace them back to the visible intelligence that most people would have displayed along the way. And the room, unable to explain the results through the standard narrative of, "This person is clearly intelligent," begins to experience a different kind of assessment. This person produces outcomes we cannot explain, and outcomes that cannot be explained cannot be prepared against. And outcomes that cannot be prepared against are the outcomes that produce the most durable strategic advantage. Machiavelli would say this as the final thing in this video. The dangerously smart person is never the person the room thinks is the smartest. They are the person whose results keep arriving from a direction the room was not watching. And the room, unable to identify the source of the results, gives that person something that visible intelligence can never earn. The specific quality of wary respect that is reserved for the person the room cannot figure out. And the person the room cannot figure out is the person the room can never outmaneuver. Because outmaneuvering requires understanding, and understanding requires visibility. And you, having made your intelligence invisible, have removed the one thing the room needed in order to match you. Comment. I let the results speak where the intelligence stays silent. My friend, let me close this out by saying something that ties all 10 strategies together. Dangerously smart is not a measure of IQ. It is not a measure of how much you know or how fast you process or how accurately you analyze. Dangerously smart is a measure of deployment, of how effectively you convert what you know into outcomes that change your position. And deployment, governed by the 10 strategies in this video, transforms the intelligence you already carry from the thing that shows you the problem into the thing that produces the solution. Machiavelli spent his career watching intelligent men lose to strategic men, men who knew more but deployed less, men who analyzed perfectly but positioned poorly, men whose intelligence was a spectacle rather than a weapon. And from the clarity of that observation, he wrote the book that has been teaching strategic deployment for 500 years. Not a book about being smart, a book about being dangerously smart, about converting the raw material of intelligence into the finished product of outcome. That conversion starts now. Not with more knowledge, with better deployment. 10 strategies, 10 cognitive upgrades, 10 specific changes in how you use the intelligence you already have, applied daily, practiced consistently, held through the discomfort of doing things differently, until the doing differently becomes the new default. And the new default produces the results that the old default was preventing. Machiavelli would leave you with one final observation. He wrote, "I hold it to be true that fortune is the arbiter of one half of our actions, but that she still leaves us to direct the other half. The intelligence you were born with is fortune's contribution. The deployment you build is your contribution. And your contribution, the 10 strategies practiced daily, accumulated across months of deliberate cognitive upgrading, is the thing that converts fortune's gift into the dangerously smart version of yourself that the world has not yet met, but is about to. That version does not look smarter than you look right now. It looks the same. It carries the same face into the same rooms, but it processes differently. It sees the second and third order consequences while the room is still reacting to the first. It reads behavior while the room is listening to words. It doubts its own certainty while the room is defending positions that should have been questioned. It sees from the other side while the room is locked into its own perspective. It holds knowledge while the room is displaying it. It reads deeply while the room is scrolling. It holds contradictions while the room is resolving them into comfortable certainty. It treats systems while the room is treating symptoms. It hears what is missing while the room is processing what was said. And it makes all of this invisible while the room is still trying to figure out how the results keep arriving from someone they never saw coming. That is dangerously smart. And that is who you are becoming now. Like this video if any of these 10 strategies gave you a specific cognitive upgrade you did not have before you pressed play. Share it with someone who is still being impressively smart when they should be dangerously smart. And subscribe to this channel because the next video goes directly into the advanced application of these strategies in the specific high-stakes moments where dangerous intelligence matters most.